Okay, we're going to walk through the Unit 3 practice problem on weapon damage. So we're down here. So again, we have to use, this is um, going to be a new project, and we're going to ask the user to enter a roll from a 20-side die, and that'll be the damage roll. So again, I'm going to go into NetBeans, Apache NetBeans, do a new project. Higher damage. Okay, and I'm going to do now. What I often do here is I just I see this stuff a lot, so I'm just going to copy this from another thing and get started because again I'm get tired of pasting my whole scanner stuff in there. So I know I'm going to need a scanner, so I'm going to do that. I know I'm going to print out something. I'm going to enter there. I'm going to say roll a 20-side die and enter the damage value. Roll a 20-sided die for the damage and enter the value, something like that. And I'm going to read that into a variable called player damage. And it will be an integer because it'll be a die that we'll be rolling. So use a roll a 20 side and its value. Now I want the player's armor value, a number between 0 and 20. So again, and so I'm going to copy this and modify it. Oops. Give myself a little bit of space in here. I'm going to do one more because I know there's one other thing I have to enter here. So, enter the player's armor value, something between 0 and 20, just to suggest that. And we'll read that into armor. And then the last thing we're going to read in is whether or not the energy shield was on or not, 1 or 0. So I'll say was the energy shield on 1 for 1 equals yes, 2 equals no. And again, read that in. And then these are all going to be integers that are being inputted, so I don't have to do next double or anything else or a string or anything like that. Reading them all as integers. Okay, so I've done that. Now I'm going to try these rules, and I'm going to just walk through them one by one. They look like they're set up as a bunch of kind of else statements, this, otherwise this, otherwise this, otherwise this. So if the damage roll was 20, then we get the actual player's damage is 20 times the roll. So that's my first thing to check. If the player damage was equal to 20, that's what we call a natural 20, then I'm going to say system dot out dot println player damage is 40, 2 times that value. Okay. Otherwise, if the shield was on, then the player's damage is 0. So, and since it was an otherwise, I'm going to do an else here because it's one or the other otherwise. Else if shield equals what is on, that would be a 1. And I want to make sure I do it equals 1. Then I want to print out player damage is 0. Make sure I spelled shield correct. Okay. So now I can try this out. So enter 20, armor value of something, shield is on, and says the player damage is 40. Run this again. Uh, let's say you didn't get a 20, you got a 18, and who cares what that is for now. And then the shield is on. That should be a 0 there. So both of these are working pretty well for this. Now, if the damage roll is greater than the armor value, and again, this is an otherwise, so if neither of these were true, then we're going to go down to this one. So if the damage roll is greater than the armor value, then the player's damage equals the damage roll. Okay, so if the damage roll is greater than the armor value. Okay, so if else, I have to do another else. If the player damage is greater than the armor, then player damage is going to be actually the damage here. I'm not sure if I like, what do I call it? Damage roll. I'm going to switch my variables around here. So this thing I called player damage, and I want to actually call it the damage roll, but I've used it in multiple locations here. So I'm going to click on it, right click on it, and go down to refactor rename. And I'm going to call it damage roll and refactor. And what this does, it will place all of them here. So it's a good way to replace something that occurs multiple times, because that's what I should have named it that originally. Okay, so now player's damage is the damage roll. That makes more sense now. Okay, now the last thing, otherwise the player's damage is 0. So else and then I'm just going to say, we already have that here, copy that out there and put it in there. Okay, so that's our process for this, and we display the calculated damage here. Okay, so that's and then we can run some tests here. Try to roll if we roll a 20, it should always hit with the natural 20, no matter what the armor value is, and if shields were on or off, it should always hit there. Run this again. We don't enter that, but our damage is still high compared to the armor, and our shield is off, not 0, 0. Oops. Again, here I just checked if it was 1, and otherwise. So the player's damage is 19. Yes, I should have entered 2 there. Interesting. Maybe I should have an error statement checking, but I don't have that right now. So I don't have any checks or bounces here. I should probably have those in here for this. And I can try some other ones. So if I only rolled a 12 and my armor is 18 and I don't have shields on, then I don't get any damage for this. The other thing is to track one of the bonus challenges is to start tracking the player's hit points at 30 and subtract those. So here I'm just printing out this damage. I'm not really tracking anything. So let's add a variable at the top, integer hit points equals 30 to start with. And here I'm going to, rather than print this out each time, I'm just going to have another variable for the damage. Int player damage equals 0 to start with. And in each of these, I'm going to not print this out. I'm just going to set the player damage equal to the value here. And I'm actually going to say this is 2 times the damage roll, because that's what the instructions say. Okay, and so here the player damage is 0, and so rather than printing it out, I'm just going to store that in this variable. And I'm just going to print it out at the end. So somewhere at the end here, I'm going to say, I'm going to do this print out like this. And I'm just going to print out the player damage is, and then print out this player damage roll value. So that's why at each point I'm just going to keep track of this as I'm going through. So I'm just wondering where my mistake is in here. Player damage. Oh, there's a parenthesis here. There. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now I can print out the player damage. I can also print out the hit points. And here I can calculate the hit points. So the hit points equals the old hit points minus the player damage. Here. What do I call it? Oh, hit points. Let me change that so it's hit points. I like that. Okay, hit points. And I'm going to print that out. Player hit points is, and then print out the hit points. Okay. Now here I said hit points equals hit points minus player damage. Some people would prefer to do this in a shortcut, minus equals, and I could do that if I wanted. Either way is fine for this. Okay, now I can try this again. Let's say we roll a large 17, but their armor is an 18 and their shields are off, and they get 0 damage and the player points is still 30 for that. So that's our general layout of this example. So hope you enjoyed it.